Welcome to the Scrum Sessions podcast from Dallas, Texas. I am Q, always here with my friend Gerion in Berlin.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the show.
Good. So, Gerion, I had a rough week.
You kind of look tired, to be honest. What's been
I
going
do
on?
look tired. I do look tired. You know, I normally don't work as a team coach. I normally work as an enterprise coach, but later I have been helping out because we don't have enough coaches and all that stuff. And I have a few teams I'm coaching, and as you can imagine, Tuesday was the last day of the sprint. And then is when things get really bad. And that's why I'm tired because I had to kind of act like the helpline for a bunch of different teams. Weird, but it happens.
And so, is it what's behind it? Is it that it's too many teams? Is it because it's the end of the sprint? What's going on there?
Now, actually, there's no such a thing as too many teams, as long as the teams get their act together, right? Which takes time. People, teams, and all those iterations and etc. They take time. People mature at different rates, and of course, if there's multiple people in a team, the maturity in adopting Scrum and in following the process and adapting to the framework and etc. takes time. But the problem is, I think a lot of times teams do voluntarily or not, they do these things to themselves. And all these teams, they had one thing in common. The last day of the sprint was like a nightmare because there's too much stuff to do and they're under the gun to finish that stuff because the sprint review is coming and then they have to plan for the next sprint and all that stuff. And I had lots of conversations, and that's why I'm tired because I have to actually help them get stuff out. The first thing I notice is, of course, this is the last day of the sprint. They were still finalizing stuff. The product owner didn't see the work yet, therefore it's not really done, right? Product owner didn't see it, and they're pretty much an hour away from doing a sprint review.
Mm.
So you ask me, how did that happen? Well, that's what it took me 2 days to figure out, right? First thing I notice is all the teams invariably they like to bring these huge pieces of stuff. You know, I'm not even call them user stories because they're product backlog items. They can be user stories, they can be spikes, they can be bugs, they can be anything. But they love to bring this big 18 wheeler kind of stuff to the sprint. And the problem is, it's not even that they bring one big 18 wheeler. The problem is they bring a bunch of 18 wheelers into the sprint. And you know where this is going, right?
Mm.
Big things have a high probability of not getting done really quick. On top of that, there is the risk of having multiple big things that you have to channel through the process until you get them done and they can be used and people can start using it and providing feedback and all the stuff that we all know. So, first problem I notice is the big thing. Instead of bringing a small item, they bring a big one. So
Yeah,
obviously, you ask them.
yeah. Can I jump in
No,
here
go ahead.
because that's so funny? Because for example, if you teach Scrum to beginners, this is always an issue, right? They always ask, well, why do I need to slice down the user stories, the product backlog items, right? And there's always like a little bit of a lack of understanding and like questioning, is it even worth it, right? And my answer is always yes, it's worth it because what happens if you don't do it? You're gonna, like you said, the 18 wheeler, right? And I always have this image of this South American jungle snake, this huge one like a boa constrictor or something like that, and it's eating a wild boar, right? And you see this cartoon image of the snake on the ground, and then you see the silhouette of the wild boar, right? Because you cannot do anything with it; it's just too big. And the snake, what is it going to do? It's going to hide somewhere for probably 2 weeks and try to digest that wild boar, right? And as a Scrum team, you cannot do that. You're just biting off more than you can actually chew, right? The 18-wheeler, as you were saying. And so yes, of course, if you're in a refinement, if you're supposed to slice down your PBIs, that's going to take a little bit of energy, right? So you're going to have to invest in that. It's going to take some more time in refinement. But the question is always, what happens if you don't do it? And then at the end of the sprint, you run into exactly the problem you're describing. Instead of, like, let's say, splitting up this 18-wheeler into 18 smaller product backlog items, right? You might have already finished 16 of them and have 2 small ones left. And even if you don't make them, it's not a big deal. But you have one 18-wheeler in there. You're almost begging for a lot of stress, a lot of problems at the end of the sprint, and you might not have anything ready, right? And then you're going into the rear and you'll say, sorry guys, we didn't quite finish it yet, but it's like 87.9% done, right? And
absolutely.
That's sorry, but that's nothing. That's just, yeah. So
well, there is that. There is the thing that they don't seem to spend enough time refining stuff. And I mentioned to them, I actually had a team last year, and I was doing a gamble walk on the refinement. I'm just sitting there, paying attention, right? So they spent one day, it was a Thursday, they spent 56 minutes discussing one item. And Q, how do you possibly know that they spent 56 minutes? Because it was actually timing it. And they couldn't finish anything. Okay, let's reconvene on Monday. On Monday, they went back to the same item. And I'm there timing again. 66 minutes. So 53 plus 66, well, it's 2 hours. Okay, let's be serious. It's 2 hours they spent in one item. And it didn't go anywhere. So I finally said, okay, that's it. They were calling a third meeting. I said, okay, fine, you guys do it. I called the product owner, called the Scrum Master and said, guys, we need to talk. I don't know about you guys, but here's what I'm seeing. There's almost nothing in ready state. There's been already 2 hours on this thing, and you guys keep going. So I'm going to do something that technically I shouldn't do as a coach, but I'm going to lay down the law. This is what you guys are going to do, okay? I'm going to try this tomorrow on Tuesday. 5-minute discussion. Scrum Master, can we vote? No, we're not ready. Okay, another 5. Scrum Master, can we vote? No, we're not ready. Okay, you know what? Stop this item. We'll figure out with you this next. Okay, and let's bring the next one. Let's bring the next one. And another thing I did is as soon as they do the voting, they size the stuff, Scrum Master goes to the definition already and check, 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 check. Right there, before we even did the checks, they went from 2 hours discussing one item to doing 5 in 1 hour. Mm-hmm. And then is the kicker. They found out that every time they run through the definition already, oh, we forgot this thing. I could swear we talked about that. To make a long story short, we did this for a couple weeks. Now they are doing about 6 an hour. And they were spending 2 hours in one item. But it was turning into a design meeting. It was turning on, well, I think this way is better than that way. And so, okay, we get those. Okay, fine. Put that on hold. Set up a meeting to discuss that stuff. And let's go to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. Because the whole point of the refinement is to create flow, is to have stuff ready so we can grab it. But just by breaking up the items, it's not going to resolve their last day of the sprint thing.
Well, I think it certainly helps, right? Because first of all, you give them the opportunity to finish something, like to have the flow going, right? If you don't break up stuff, if you don't slice it up, you're not even going to get the chance. And I personally, as coming from the Scrum Master side, I actually kind of need it, right? I usher the team forward, right? I want to make sure that the tickets are flowing. And so I need those little items. And so I can say, okay, guys, we've already spent 50% of the sprint. Shouldn't we like start to finish some of the stuff first, right? Let's look at one of the ones that is almost done. Can we move it over the finish line? And kind of, this is not only about actually getting it done, which is very important, but also instilling this mindset, right? So if I have, let's say we do 3-week sprints and I have just one large item, I'm exaggerating, but you'll get what I'm trying to say in a minute, is, you know, like how often do I get the chance to actually nudge them forward, right? To give them that experience to make sure they get that feeling of moving over the done line, right? If I just have it once, that's not enough every 3 weeks. I need those little moments where I can praise them for getting it done, for making sure, okay guys, do you see now that we have finished it, especially if we can already deploy it, we can already save some money, we can already make more money, we can already profit from the new features that or capabilities that we have finished here. And so it's all about moving across the finish line, because that's what generates value, right? Everything up to that line is, I don't want to say waste because it's not waste, but it's not there yet. It's not creating the value that we actually intend to receive. And so it's not enough, but it's very important, not only for actually physically enabling them to digest this thing, but also for me as a Scrum Master to keep the team, to nudge them on that path to flow.
Yeah, there is even one more thing. That's a great point that you mentioned is there is the psychological, the perception thing, right? Because if you bring the big 18-wheeler with lots of packages in there and all that stuff, and you treat it as a single package, there's another thing. Every day you go to the daily Scrum and people are going to say, well, I'm still working on this. And then tomorrow, I'm still working on this. And then tomorrow, I'm still working on this. So 5 days into the sprint, and I'm still working on this. And at that point, I don't know why it went 5 days and nobody asked, why are you still working on this? But that's another question, right? But the point is perception. When you work in the smaller things, odds are there is one thing that gets done every day. And I didn't even mean definition of done, but done to the point that you can show to the product owner, you know, and the things are moving.
Yeah.
Things are moving. And product owners are always busy. I remember when I was one, I mean, you are always running in 27 different directions, right? So if somebody comes with something really, really small, you can take a look and say, yeah, that's what I want, seems to be working, great.
Yeah, check.
Now, check, you're done. And then if you wait to the last day of the sprint, when you have all these 18-wheelers lined up, and the product owner is trying to prepare all the stuff for the sprint review and say, hey, can you take a look at this stuff before we have 15 minutes until the review should be enough, right? So they do these things to themselves. And it's really funny that people keep doing this and keep doing this. And I'm not going to get into the discussion that the Scrum Master should act a lot earlier. But you also have the problem that the Scrum Master is a greenhorn. Sometimes the Scrum Master and the product owner are greenhorns. The whole team is basically green. And who is checking who, right? I mean, they don't have experience.
Yeah, and I think you're pointing out something that a lot of team members aren't quite aware of, right? Because you're really putting your product owner on the spot in that situation, right? Especially if you have the review as it's supposed to be, right? With stakeholders or customers there, right? And if you come up to the product owner who's already super nervous because she has to get up in front of an audience in a bit, right? And she's nervous because this one or these few large items aren't even finished yet, right? And then like 15 minutes, 45 minutes, even 2 hours before you come and you say, here, it's finished now, right? And she has to take a look at it. First of all, she might not have the time or the bandwidth in that moment. And also, what if she's not quite happy with something, right? You're taking away the liberty from her to actually reject the stuff or have some rework done, right? And this is actually super unfair if you've ever been in that situation, because you're like, okay, so what's my choice now? I can either reject it, and of the very few things we pulled in the sprint, right, we're not getting it done, so I'm going to have to show that in the review, right? Or I can accept it with a quality that normally I wouldn't have accepted if I had more time to, like think about it and maybe send it back for some minor revisions. And this is actually very unfair towards the product owner in my mind.
It is. It's unfair for the whole team, right? It's a team sport in the end. But you are overloading the product owner stuff the day that the product owner has the least amount of time to deal with stuff. And Then the team gets frustrated. Well, the product owner didn't look at that stuff, and we have the review coming. Do you know if the product owner is going to approve this? Do we demo this or not? So it creates a lot of things. People have to understand that, again, it's a team sport. One thing doesn't fall in place, another 20 dominoes get messed up, right? And there goes your beautiful domino falling thing. Just it's going in all the directions that you don't want to go. But one of the funny things is, besides the big 18-wheeler thing, which we can fix, will fix. Just about 2 weeks ago, I was again doing another Gemba walk. And for people not familiar with the term Gemba walk, it's in Japanese, Gemba is the place where the work is being done. Sometimes it's translated as the factory floor, sometimes it's translated as a shop, but it's the place where work is being done. Nowadays, we're remote, etc., so the Gemba is more a virtual concept than anything. But I was there observing, and I see this. Somebody in the team came and said, I'm done with my work. If you guys don't mind, I'm going to go grab another card. And nobody said anything. And I look at the board, and man, there's a lot of stuff in the board that there are multiple things that need to happen with those things until they can be called done, including the product owner looking at it. But there are multiple things that need to be done to get to done state. And here's this person going basically to go grab new work. And don't take me wrong, I'm all for bringing more work inside the sprint. Great, yeah, we're going to do some extra stuff. Great, right? Teams that finish early accelerate faster. Here's one problem. It says teams that finish early accelerate faster, not one person that in the team that finishes early doesn't accelerate anything faster. So, classical example of local optimization. What is best for me? I don't really care there's another 5 people in the team and they're swamped. I'm done with my work. So what do you see this? There is the silo mentality. It's me, 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 me. There is the local optimization again, which falls back on the silo mentality. Me, 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 me. Mm. And again, a lot of these people are greenhorns. And I called the Scrum Master and I said, hey, we need to talk about this stuff because this is what's happening, and etc. You should tell the person to first see if they can help the team doing other stuff. And then the Scrum Master turns to me and said, but Q, I did that already. And I said, wait a minute, when did you do that? Oh, one of those days you were not there. It was the same thing. And I asked, hey, can you help the other people in the team? And the same person said, well, you know what? I don't know how to do their stuff. And nor I have any interest in doing their stuff. Then the thing gets even uglier, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's the silo mentality, the local optimization, and the really bad attitude that, hey, I'm not going to learn anything. I have no use for anybody other than the stuff that I do.
Yeah. And, like one part of it is sometimes cherry picking, right? People are actually good teammates. They are a real team. And the person just doesn't care about the topics, right? And maybe something is in the product backlog that's super enticing. And I totally get that, right? But you still, as a Scrum Master, you have to make sure to finish the stuff that's on the board. And if there's, if there's already a couple of people on each of the items, let's say there are 2 items left, right? And one is being swarmed by 2 people and one is being swarmed by 3 people. And you have 1 person left and it really doesn't add any value. Of course, I'm going to be relaxed about it, right? Because I'm seeing that the team is taking care of it, and if one person wants to go ahead, I'm actually okay with it. But, apart from the cherry picking, I was thinking just now, the one time I really had a lot of trouble with the last day, because I actually find the last day to be very invigorating, right? It's always stressful, but it focuses your energies and your attention because you now need to get something done, right? No matter what's been going on so far in the sprint, you need to get stuff ready for the review, and this is one of the mechanisms at work, right? But in the one team that it was really painful every single time, what was behind it? It was still this conception of I have my technical role. I'm a tester, I'm a developer, I'm this, I'm that. Nobody was T-shaped, right? They didn't even have the understanding. And what happened? Well, at the beginning of the sprint, maybe the design was done. So typical waterfall inside of the sprint, right? So design for the first 1-2 days, then development, and then the testers at the very end. And this is where it gets really, really painful because the testers don't have enough to do in the beginning. And then at the end of the sprint, waterfall inside of a sprint, right? They are getting all the stuff. And if there's any problem, they need to send it back to the developers. Time is already running out. They have to do overtime in the evenings, and you're just setting yourself up to fail, right? And so especially in teams that are not as mature, I think this is one of the big issues when people come in with their fixed role mentality and say, I'm a tester, I'm this, I'm that, right? And in Scrum, frankly, we don't care about it. Like you said, it's a team sport, and we care about moving the items. And I often am swarming on stuff. I was just swarming yesterday with 2 very smart developers, right? And they were talking about the database tables. They were trying to solve something. I didn't understand anything. The last time I was doing anything was 20 years ago in university, right? I didn't understand anything, but I was still present to answer the couple of questions that they had and to learn some stuff, because our intention was to get this last item over the finish line and not me saying, oh, I'm a business guy, I'm so clever, I've done my job, you guys figure it out, right? Because that's not the mentality of Scrum. Our mentality is to do it as a team. And if they had to, work in the evening to get this done, of course I'd be there. I would never get the idea to not be there with them if they're suffering, right? It's our team effort, and so we did it together, and this is the way it's supposed to be done.
Yep, I know. And the interesting thing about this is when you suggest things like swarming, and I get it, swarming, the first time you do it, it's not the easiest thing. But you can start with pairing, and then people say, but Q, I'm not going to spend the whole day with another person. I said, well, nobody said you have to do pairing for the whole day or even swarming for the whole day. You do when you need. But I think people tend to adapt this all or nothing thing. If you tell them to swarm, they swarm on everything. It doesn't matter if, we have to change the label in something on a web page. It takes 5 minutes, right? No, but how can we swarm on that? I seen stuff like this. Or if you don't say anything about swarming, each one of them picks up an item, and then you know what happens, right? Somebody gets sick, somebody slows down because of something, and then stuff is impeded and all that stuff. So I don't know what happens that people tend to have this all or nothing mentality instead of taking every technique, every opportunity or etc. as a way to use different things that you learn, different things that are in your experience and expertise, and try to see what fits better for the place, right? As much as I think that duct tapes pretty much solves everything, right? I mean, if you have a pair of pliers, a screwdriver, and duct tape, you can do a lot of stuff. Yeah, I mean, you can use the screwdriver as a picker and use the pliers as a hammer, but it doesn't quite work. Yeah, if it's a life or death situation, I get it. But it's the same thing. You cannot swarm on everything. You cannot pair on everything, but you also cannot work alone all the time. And when it comes to the T-shaping, I always tell them, listen, get real. You have one skill. Okay, you're great at that. I get it. You're great. You are the best at that. But you have one skill. So first of all, you can't help anybody because you have one skill. Second of all, let's talk about this, considering that probably today they're laying off half of Twitter. Let's think about this. When there is a situation that we have to, unfortunately, lay off people, am I going to lay off the person who has one skill or the person who has multiple skills? Even if the skills are not totally in depth, you have 3 skills, but they're not in depth, some are broader. You are more valuable to me, to the team, and to yourself when you have multiple skills. So when people have this attitude, oh, I'm good at this, and that's it. Okay, fixed mindset. There's no growth mindset in there. And as much as I hate buzzwords like growth mindset, fixed mindset, it explains that. You can either use something as an opportunity, Or you can complain about all the time and say, hey, I'm going to go get another card because that's all I can do. In the meantime, the rest of the team is dying there to get stuff done.
Yeah. So if we zoom out again, so the issue was, last day of the sprint is it's invigorating, but at the same time can be really frustrating. And we said, so if you're in that situation, the first thing to look at, are you slicing your items down enough, right? Because if you drive in the 18-wheeler, it's probably going to clog up the system. And the second one was take a look at, the role understanding. Is everybody just, focusing on their old traditional role, or are they actually T-shaped or trying to get T-shaped, right? Are they helping each other? Even, me yesterday, I didn't really help them all that much, but, at least trying to do it. Is there anything else that we should think of to mitigate that last day stress, or is that about it?
No, small items. Try to become T-shaped as soon as you can, right? It's not that you go there and flip a switch, right? The other one is think about pairing to start with, then swarming. Swarming, you can go one item or maybe two items maximum. Invest a lot of time in refinement, right? Because a lot of these things can be solved in refinement. And it's for another time, but the more time in refinement, the less time in planning, the less time getting stuck on the sprint. I think one thing that we normally don't mention is when you are planning, which can be very quick, try to have an initial discussion how we are going to attack the stuff on the sprint backlog. Try to create a plan of attack. Hey, let's going to do this one first or that one first, and etc. It doesn't need to be an elaborate discussion, but at least it's better than just get on the first day of the sprint and say, where do we start?
Actually,
because you may actually spend a half a day trying to figure out where to start if you didn't do it.
Yeah, so actually, I was just thinking the last point I wanted to make is Scrum Masters, please make sure there's flow, right? Always not nudge people, don't put them under pressure, don't yell at them, all of this stuff, no. But try to nudge everything along, right? You're the master of flow. You're supposed to make everything work. And I think that's a very good instance, right? So of course the team can self-organize around this stuff and can prioritize inside of the sprint. But if you see the tendency that, they're not getting off to a quick start, right? So then maybe they go to lunch after sprint planning and then, oh yeah, let's, slowly start. No, give some energy into it. Ask, okay, what are we going to work on first, right? To get things moving, because this is part of your job description, the psychological aspect of getting people out of their seats, getting them to move and to get the flow started.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said better myself. So I hope you guys take some of those tips. We understand that for some people, what we said may not be big news, but for a lot of people, it is something that you are learning, right? We all mature at different speeds, right? We all learn at different pace. There's always the risk of being a greenhorn Scrum Master, a greenhorn of product owner. And like I said, I have teams that everybody's a greenhorn. So these tips are really good. And even if you've been doing this for a while, remember, there is always stuff that you forget after a while when you didn't come into that situation before. So feel free to get in contact with Gary and myself. We're always looking for suggestions. We're always looking for feedback. And from Dallas, I'm going to close episode 5. Gary, as always, you have the last word.
So thanks everyone for listening and watching to us. Hopefully we'll see you at episode 6 and have a great time until then. Bye-bye.